I still remember the exact second my life split in two. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was not one of those moments where people scream and throw glasses and everyone gasps. No, it happened in silence. I was standing in my own home, holding a tray of wine glasses, while my husband smiled at my sister like I was nothing more than furniture in the room. And in front of everyone I loved, he looked at me and said, "Claire, don't make this awkward." That was the moment I understood something cold and final. My husband was cheating on me. My sister knew, and both of them thought I was too weak to do anything about it. They were wrong. My name is Claire, and this is the night I stopped being the woman they humiliated and became the woman they should have been afraid of. For years, people thought my life was perfect. 10 years of marriage. A beautiful house. A successful husband. Family dinners. Pictures on the wall. Christmas cards with matching smiles. From the outside, Ethan and I looked like one of those couples people quietly envied. He had the job. I had the home. He had the charm. I had the patience. And my sister Megan had always been close enough to cross every line I never imagined she would cross. That was the part that hurt most. Not just that Ethan betrayed me. Not just that Megan betrayed me. It was that they did it together, while looking me in the eye. At first, I noticed small things. The late nights. The phone screen turned down. The sudden new cologne. The way Megan started coming over more often. Always when Ethan was home. She would laugh too hard at his jokes. Touch his arm too long. Stand too close in the kitchen. Smile at him like she was sharing a secret I was not allowed to hear. I told myself I was imagining it. That is what women like me do, isn't it? We see the cracks, and then we cover them with excuses because we want our lives to stay whole. I told myself Ethan was stressed. I told myself Megan was lonely. I told myself family meant trusting people, even when something inside me was whispering that trust was being used against me. Then came the first real sign. One night, Ethan came home smelling like perfume that was not mine. I was in the hallway. He kissed my forehead like nothing was wrong. "Long meeting," he said. "Who was there?" I asked. He didn't even blink. Just the team. But when he turned away, I saw it. A lipstick mark. Faint, but there. Not on his collar. On the inside of his jacket. My hands went cold. I remember folding the jacket neatly over the chair. Standing there, with my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I wanted to confront him right then. I wanted to drag the truth into the light. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe fear. Maybe the part of me that still loved him too much to destroy the image I had built around him. So I stayed quiet. And quietness is dangerous when you're hurting, because people start to mistake your silence for weakness. A week later, Megan came to dinner wearing a new dress she would not stop touching, like she wanted attention but pretended she didn't. Ethan looked at her once, then again. Not in a normal way. Not in a brother-in-law way. In a way that made my stomach turn. I watched them exchange a look across the table, quick and sharp, like they were both holding back laughter. I asked Megan, "You okay?" She smiled too fast. "Of course, why wouldn't I be?" Ethan cut in before I could say anything else. "Claire, don't start," he said, like I was already creating a problem. I looked at him. "Start what?" He leaned back in his chair and gave me that patient little smile men use when they want to make a woman feel unreasonable. "You know what I mean." And that was when I knew. Not suspected. Not wondered. Knew. They wanted me confused. They wanted me quiet. They wanted me to doubt my own eyes until I stopped trusting myself. So I did the one thing they did not expect. I got smart. I stopped crying in front of them. I stopped asking questions. I stopped begging for explanations. I began collecting them. The first thing I found was a hotel receipt in Ethan's coat pocket. 2 nights. Same week Megan told me she had work training out of town. The second thing was a set of messages he forgot to delete from an old tablet. Not just flirtation. plans, times, rooms, excuses. The third thing was the worst. A voice note, Megan's voice soft and laughing, saying, "She still has no idea." Then Ethan's voice, low and pleased. "Let her keep pretending. She always does." I sat on the floor with that tablet in my hands, staring at it until my vision blurred. I did not sob. I did not scream. I just felt something in me close. Not break. Close. Like a door, locking from the inside. That was the night I made my decision. I would not ruin them immediately. I would not give them the satisfaction of watching me collapse. I would wait. And I would choose the place where they died socially, publicly, beautifully, and completely. Our 10th anniversary party was 3 months away. Ethan wanted it to be big. He loved appearances. He loved polished speeches and expensive lights and people admiring the man he pretended to be. He told me, "We should do something unforgettable." And I smiled at him and said, "I think that's a wonderful idea." He kissed my cheek, not knowing I was already planning the end of his perfect life. The weeks before the party were some of the hardest of my life. Every day I had to act normal. I had to cook with Megan in my kitchen while she laughed and touched my counters like she owned them. I had to sit beside Ethan in the car while his hand rested on my knee and his phone buzzed with secrets. I had to answer texts from my mother asking if everything was okay and say, "Yes, everything is fine." Nothing was fine, but I learned something powerful in those weeks. People who lie to your face often get sloppy. They become comfortable, careless, proud, and pride is the easiest weapon to use against someone who thinks they are untouchable. I hired a private investigator with money I had quietly saved over the years. He copied files. I backed up screenshots. I printed messages. I saved call logs. I even found security footage from a hotel parking lot, where Ethan's car was parked for 3 hours on the night he told me he was stuck in traffic. I didn't just want proof. I wanted a complete picture. I wanted every lie to be lit from every angle until there was nowhere for them to hide. Then I found the final piece. A ring. Not my ring. Megan's. I found it in Ethan's car, tucked into the side pocket of the passenger door. Not a wedding ring. A small silver band with a blue stone. I knew that ring. She wore it all the time. Until one day she suddenly didn't. I looked at it for a long time, sitting in the driver's seat of his car with the engine off and my hand shaking. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so disgusting, so perfectly stupid, so cruelly obvious that I almost admired their arrogance. They were not just cheating. They were careless enough to leave pieces of themselves behind. By the time the anniversary party arrived, I was calm in a way that frightened even me. I chose my dress carefully. Not black, not red, not anything that looked like revenge. I wore a deep blue dress, simple and elegant, the kind of dress that makes people look twice because it says, "I did not come to beg, I came to stand." My hair was pinned back. My makeup was soft. My hands were steady. Ethan saw me before the guests arrived and smiled. "You look nice," he said. I looked at him and smiled back. "So do you." He kissed my cheek and went to greet people. Megan arrived 20 minutes later, wearing a pale gold dress that looked expensive enough to suggest she thought she was the star of the night. She hugged me a little too long. "This is beautiful, Claire," she said. "You really outdid yourself." I leaned back and looked into her eyes. "Thank you," I said. "Tonight is going to be unforgettable." Something flickered in her face. Just for a second. Then it was gone. That was the thing about guilty people. They hear truth long before you say it. The house was full. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, my parents, his parents, people who had watched us grow old together on social media and thought they knew our story. They all smiled. They all toasted. They all believed in the lie. Ethan stood near the fireplace with a glass of whiskey, telling a joke that made the room laugh. He looked so relaxed, so in control. I almost pitied him. Almost. At 8 o'clock, he tapped his glass and called for everyone's attention. 10 years, he said, smiling at the crowd. 10 incredible years with Claire. I'm the luckiest man alive. People applauded. He turned toward me. And I mean that. I walked toward him slowly, one heel at a time, and took the microphone from his hand. His smile stiffened just a little. Actually, I said, looking out at the room, I have something I want to share too. The room went quiet. Ethan gave a small laugh. Claire, not now. I looked at him. Why not now? A few people chuckled, thinking this was sweet, romantic, a wife teasing her husband on a special night. Megan was standing by the wall with a glass of wine in her hand. She was watching me too carefully now. I lifted my chin and smiled. I think everyone here deserves to see what 10 years really looked like. Ethan's brow tightened. Claire, he said again, quieter this time. What are you doing? I didn't answer him. Instead, I pressed the button on the remote in my hand. The lights dimmed. A large white screen came down behind us, and the first image appeared. It was a screenshot of Ethan's text message to Megan. Can't wait to see you tonight. She'll never know. The room went silent so fast it felt like the air had been sucked out of it. I heard someone gasp, then another. Ethan took one step back. What is this? He said. I kept my voice soft. This, I said, is what my marriage looked like when the cameras were off. The second slide appeared. A hotel reservation. Then another. A picture of Ethan's car in the hotel lot. Then the messages. Then the voice note. Then the security footage. Then the photo of Megan's silver ring in his car. A wave of shock moved through the room like fire through dry grass. People were staring now. Really staring. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father stood up slowly, as if his body did not yet understand what his mind had already seen. Megan turned pale. Claire, stop, she said. I looked at her. Why? You didn't stop. Ethan stepped toward the screen like he could physically block it. Turn that off, he snapped. I turned to him. Sit down. He blinked. A few people in the room blinked too, because I had never spoken to him like that before. Not once. He laughed nervously. You're making a scene. I gave a small smile. No, Ethan. You made a scene. I'm just showing it to everyone. His face darkened. Whatever you think you know. Oh, I know plenty, I said. And then I read the messages aloud. Not all of them. Just enough. Just enough to let the room hear the truth in their own ears. Enough to hear Ethan call my sister better than I expected. Enough to hear Megan ask, Does Claire suspect anything? Enough to hear him answer, No, she never does. That line hit harder than anything else. I saw it in the room. The shift, the horror, the pity, the disgust. And in Ethan's eyes, I saw something else. Fear. Real fear. Because cheaters always think the danger is getting caught. They never think about what happens after they are caught. Megan was trembling now. This isn't fair, she said, her voice shaking. You're embarrassing us. I turned toward her. Embarrassing? I almost laughed. You slept with my husband, I said. In my marriage, in my family, in my life, and you are worried about embarrassment. She started crying. Not because she was sorry, because she had been exposed. There is a difference. Ethan grabbed my arm. Claire, let's talk privately. I looked at his hand on my skin and then back at his face. Take your hand off me. He didn't move. So I said it louder. Take your hand off me. The room went dead still. And then, slowly, he let go. I stepped back and faced everyone. For months, I said, I was told I was imagining things. I was made to feel crazy. I was lied to by the two people I trusted most. My husband and my sister made a private joke out of my pain. My voice did not shake. I did not scream. I did not beg. I did not throw anything. I waited until tonight because I wanted everyone to see who they really are. Megan shook her head. Claire, please. I looked at her with all the love I used to have stripped out of my chest. Don't say my name like we're still sisters. She cried harder. Ethan's face had gone a sick, angry red. You planned this, he said. Yes, I replied. I did. He stared at me like he had just met me for the first time. And maybe he had. Because the woman he thought he knew was gone. I stepped closer to him. You thought silence meant weakness, I said. You thought I would break in private so you could keep smiling in public. But I learned something from both of you. I held up the remote. People who live in lies always leave evidence. A murmur moved through the guests. Some people were already standing up, ready to leave, unsure whether they should stay or escape the shame of witnessing it. Ethan looked around the room, desperate now. This is between us, he said. No, I answered. It became everyone's business the moment you humiliated me in front of them. Then I did the final thing. I pressed play one more time. This video was short. It was not a text. It was not a screenshot. It was footage from the hotel lobby. Ethan and Megan entering together, laughing, touching, looking around to see if anyone was watching. There was no more denying it after that. No more excuses. No more confusion. No more careful lies. The truth sat in the room like a body, heavy, still, impossible to ignore. Megan covered her face. Ethan stepped forward again, voice rising. You ruined everything. I looked at him calmly. No, I said. You did. I set the remote down on the table. Then I reached into the pocket of my dress and pulled out a small envelope. Ethan froze when he saw it. Inside was the second set of papers. The lawyer's copy, the divorce petition, the financial records, the proof of assets, the texts I had printed from my attorney, the signed documents showing I had already secured my share of everything I had spent 10 years helping build. His jaw tightened. What is that? He asked, though he already knew. I handed the envelope to him. It's the end, I said. He opened it with shaking hands. His face changed as he read. The room watched in silence, while his world fell apart line by line. I could see it happening inside him. The shock, the panic, the realization that I had not just discovered the betrayal, I had prepared for it. I had protected myself. He looked up at me, and for the first time in 10 years, he had nothing clever to say. I saw Megan take a step back toward the door. She wanted out. Too late. I turned to the room one last time. I'm sorry you had to witness this, I said softly, but I am no longer sorry for being the woman who chose herself. My mother was crying. My father came to stand beside me, not saying anything. Just there, solid and quiet. That meant more than 100 speeches. Ethan said my name one more time, but I didn't look at him. Not anymore. I took my shoes off near the hallway, because they were hurting my feet, and somehow that felt like the most powerful thing I did all night. One small, ordinary act, as if I was no longer performing for anyone, as if I had finally come home to myself. I walked toward the front door. Behind me, the room was chaos. Someone was shouting at Ethan. Megan was crying. A chair scraped across the floor. Voices rose and fell. The party was dead, exactly as planned. I paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. Ethan was standing under the ruined spotlight, holding the divorce papers like they were a death certificate. Megan was near the wall, mascara running, her gold dress suddenly looking cheap under the harsh lights. And I realized something then. The humiliation was never mine. It belonged to them. I stepped outside into the cold night air and breathed for the first time in months. The sky was dark and clear, quiet, peaceful. Not because my life was fixed. Not because my heart was healed. But because the lie was over. And that is the truth people never tell you about revenge. The best revenge is not screaming. It is not begging. It is not throwing away your dignity for the sake of one dramatic moment. The best revenge is patience. It is evidence. It is timing. It is staying calm while the people who betrayed you build the cage they will eventually trap themselves in. By the next morning, the video had been sent to my lawyer, my family, and every guest who had attended the party. By the end of the week, Ethan was begging. By the end of the month, Megan had moved out of town. And by the end of the year, I was no longer the woman who stood in the corner while her marriage rotted in front of her. I was the woman who waited, the woman who watched, the woman who smiled at the right time and struck at the right one. Because some women break, and some women become very, very still. And stillness, when it belongs to the right woman, can destroy everything. I thought the hardest part would be the party. I was wrong. The hardest part came after. It came in the stillness of the next morning, when the house felt too big and too empty and every room held a memory I did not want anymore. The champagne glasses were still on the counter. A few flowers had already started to droop. The white screen from the projector was still folded at the back of the room like a ghost that did its job and left. I stood in the kitchen with a cup of coffee I did not drink and stared out the window. The sun was up, the world was normal. Birds were singing, cars were passing. Somewhere, people were making breakfast and checking emails and arguing over small things that still mattered to them. And my life, the one I had spent 10 years protecting, was gone, not destroyed. Gone. There is a difference. Destroyed means there is something left to mourn. Gone means the thing you loved became a stranger and walked away wearing its own face. My phone started ringing before I finished the coffee. My mother first, then my father, then 2 friends from the party, then my attorney, then numbers I did not recognize. By the time I sat down at the table, my screen was full of missed calls and messages. Some were kind, some were shocked, some were angry, and some were from people who had no right to say a word to me at all. Ethan called 12 times in a row. He let it ring. Then he texted, "We need to talk." I stared at the words and felt nothing. Not hate, not pain, not even satisfaction, just distance. That was new. That was the real change. Because when someone hurts you deeply, there is always a moment where you still hope for a different version of them. A version that regrets it. A version that explains it. A version that says, "I made a terrible mistake," and means it. But Ethan had already shown me who he was, and Megan had done the same. So I put the phone face down and kept sitting there until the house stopped feeling like it was breathing around me. An hour later, my lawyer arrived. She was a calm woman with sharp eyes and a briefcase that made everything feel official. She sat across from me at the dining table and said, "You did everything right." I almost laughed at that. Everything right. It sounded too clean for what had happened. Too neat. Too polite. But she meant it. The hidden recordings. The saved messages. The financial records. The copy of the hotel footage. The advance filing. She told me Ethan had made one major mistake. "What?" I asked. "Underestimating you." I looked down at my hands. That line stayed with me. Because that is what people do before they betray you. They think your kindness is softness. They think your quiet is surrender. They think your patience means you won't move. They never understand that the calmest women are often the ones watching the closest. My lawyer explained the first steps. The home could not just be walked out of. The joint accounts had already been flagged. The documents I had signed the month before were strong. The evidence of infidelity mattered more than Ethan would have expected in public, especially once the financial picture was examined. She told me not to answer his calls. Not yet. He would try to talk. He would apologize. Then he would argue. Then he would blame. Men like Ethan always do the same thing when they are cornered. They start with charm. Then they move to guilt. Then they move to anger. And when none of that works, they become pathetic. That was exactly what happened. By noon, Ethan showed up at the house. I saw his car pull into the driveway through the kitchen window. My body did not even react. That was how I knew I was changing. The old Claire would have frozen. The old Claire would have hidden. The old Claire would have tried to keep the peace. The new Claire just stood there, waiting. He rang the bell. Then again. Then he started knocking. "Claire!" he shouted through the door. "Open the door!" I could hear the edge in his voice. Not love. Not concern. Panic. He knew the party had ended badly, but he still had not understood how badly. He did not know I had sent copies to the lawyer. He did not know the financial locks were already in motion. He did not know the neighbors had seen enough to start talking. And he definitely did not know I was no longer afraid of his voice. He banged on the door again. "Claire, don't do this." That almost made me smile. "Don't do this." As if I had started it. As if 10 years of lying, cheating, and humiliating me were not doing something. I opened the door only enough to look at him. He looked terrible. His tie was loose. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red and sleepless. The man who had stood at the party pretending to be in control was gone. He looked at me like he was still trying to find the version of me he knew. "Please," he said. "We need to talk privately." "No," I said. He blinked. "Claire." I said no. He swallowed hard and changed tactics immediately. I was drunk. I looked at him in silence. He rushed on. It started as a mistake. Then it just got complicated. Complicated. I repeated softly. He nodded too fast, relieved that I had spoken. "Yes, it wasn't." I cut him off. "You and my sister were planning hotel meetups, sending messages, hiding receipts, and laughing about me for months. That is not complicated. That is deliberate." His jaw tightened. He hated hearing it said that plainly. People who lie hate simple words because simple words strip away the fog they used to hide in. He stepped closer. "I never wanted to hurt you." I laughed then. Not because it was funny. Because it was insulting. "You never wanted me to know," I said. "That is not the same thing." He went still. For a second, I saw the old Ethan in his face. The one who believed he could talk his way out of anything. The one who believed he was still the smartest person in every room. Then he tried one last thing. "Megan meant nothing," he said. That one was almost worse, because there was a time when I would have wanted to believe that. There was a time when I would have clung to that sentence like it could somehow make the damage smaller. But now I knew better. If she meant nothing, then why risk everything? If it was meaningless, then why hide it so carefully? If it was just a mistake, then why did they both laugh at my expense? So I looked at him and said, "You do not get to reduce your cruelty to make it easier for yourself." His face hardened. There it was. The anger. The shift. The mask cracking. "I built this house," he snapped. I stared at him. "No," I said. "We built it, and you turned it into a lie." He was silent for a moment. Then he said the most revealing thing he had said all day. "You really planned all of this." It was not a question. It was disbelief. Not remorse. Not shame. Disbelief that I had become the kind of woman who could do what he had always assumed I never would. I nodded once. "Yes." He looked past me into the house, probably expecting to see the same passive wife he had controlled for years. But she was gone. He looked back at me and lowered his voice. "You made me look like a fool." The moment he said that, I understood something important. He was not sorry he hurt me. He was sorry people saw it. That was the difference between guilt and embarrassment. One belongs to the soul. The other belongs to ego. And Ethan had never been a man with a soul strong enough to notice the difference. "I did not make you look like anything," I said. "You did that yourself." He stepped forward again, but I did not move. That stopped him. It always works that way. When a man is used to your retreat, your stillness feels like a wall. He looked at my face for any sign of the woman he could manipulate. He found none. Then he asked quietly, "What do you want?" That was the question he should have asked 10 years ago. "What do you want, Claire? Not what looks good. Not what keeps the peace. Not what makes me comfortable. What do you want?" But now the answer came too late for him. "I want the divorce," I said. "I want my share. I want my name off your lies. I want my life back." He stared at me for a long time. Then he said, "And Megan?" That name hit the air like a dirty glass. I breathed in once. "She can have you," I said. He looked stunned. He had expected tears. He had expected rage. He had expected me to fight for him. But I had already fought for the wrong thing long enough. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize again, maybe to bargain, maybe to say he still loved me in the way weak men say they still love the person they destroyed. I closed the door before he could speak. The sound echoed through the hallway. One soft click. That was all it took. I leaned my forehead against the door for a second and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. I did not cry. That part surprised me, too. I thought I would cry at some point. Maybe at the party. Maybe after the house emptied. Maybe when Ethan came to the door. But the tears did not come. Not because I had no pain. Because pain had already burned itself into something else. Something harder. Something steadier. By the second day, the story had spread. Not because I wanted it to. Because stories like mine never stay private. Someone had recorded part of the reveal at the party. Not the whole thing, but enough. Enough for voices. Enough for the screen. Enough for the room going silent when the messages appeared. By nightfall, a few people had seen it. By the next morning, more had. By the end of the week, it was the kind of thing people whispered about over lunch and played back on their phones in disbelief. Some said I was cruel. Some said I was genius. Some said I should have left quietly. Those were usually the people who had never been humiliated by the people they trusted most. They always speak the loudest about dignity when they have never had to fight for theirs. But I did not care what strangers thought. What mattered was the way my own life had begun to change. The house settled into silence after Ethan moved out. Megan never came back. She sent one message. Just one. It said, "I never meant for it to happen like this." I read it once, then I deleted it. Never meant. That phrase used to make me weak. Now it made me tired. Because people always say that after the damage is done, they never mean it when it can still be stopped. A week later, my father came to see me. He did not come with advice. He did not come with questions. He did not come with the kind of empty sympathy that makes pain feel decorative. He came with groceries. Simple things. Bread, fruit, soap, coffee. He put the bags down and looked around the kitchen. Then he said, "You handled that better than I would have." I almost smiled. "Dad, you would have smashed something." He gave a tired half-laugh. "Yes, probably." We stood in the kitchen for a while without talking. Then he said, "I'm proud of you." Those words nearly undid me. Not because they were grand, because they were true. I turned away quickly so he would not see my eyes. He pretended not to notice. That is what love looks like when it is quiet and real. It does not demand a performance. It does not ask you to be strong for its comfort. It just stays. In the days that followed, I began sorting through the wreckage of my old life. The clothes in the closet. The framed photos on the shelves. The gifts I had kept because they had once meant something. The anniversary cards. The wedding album. I packed some things into boxes. Others I threw away. And some I simply placed in a drawer. Not because I wanted them. I was not yet ready to decide what they meant. There is no tidy way to end a 10-year life. There is only the slow, humiliating work of deciding what belongs to you now. One evening, I found the old necklace Ethan gave me on our 3rd anniversary. I held it in my palm for a long time. Back then, I had thought gifts were proof of love. Now I knew better. Love is not in the things someone gives you. It is in the way they treat your heart when no one is watching. I put the necklace in a box for donation and shut the lid. That night, I slept for the first time in months. Not deeply, not peacefully, but enough. Enough to dream. In the dream, I was back at the party. The room was silent again. The screen was bright. Ethan and Megan were frozen in the same moment of exposure. But this time I was not standing in the center of it. I was outside, watching through the window, and when the glass shattered, it did not cut me. I woke up before sunrise and sat on the edge of the bed with the window open. The air was cool. The sky was turning pale. There was something almost holy about that morning. Not because everything was healed, because everything was open. That was the first day I understood that freedom does not always feel like joy at first. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels empty. Sometimes it feels like standing in a room where the walls used to protect you and realizing they were only trapping you. But emptiness can become space. Space can become peace. Peace can become a life. And that life started for me in tiny ways. I started walking in the mornings. I started cooking meals I actually liked. I started answering my phone without fear. I stopped checking for messages that would make me sick. I met a counselor who helped me untangle all the ways I had learned to shrink myself for the comfort of other people. That part was harder than the revenge, harder than the public humiliation, harder than the divorce papers. Because revenge gives you adrenaline, healing gives you truth. And truth is slower, but it is real. The first time I told the full story to someone without crying, I was surprised by my own voice. It sounded steadier than I expected. More mine. My counselor asked me, "What did you learn?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, "That silence can be a weapon, but only if you know when to use it." She nodded. I kept going, and that some people don't fear being wrong. They fear being seen. She nodded again. And that being betrayed by two people at once does not mean you were foolish. What does it mean? She asked. I looked down at my hands. Then I said the thing I should have believed a long time ago. It means they were dishonest. That was all. Not because I was weak. Not because I misread everything. Not because I failed. Because they chose to lie. That distinction mattered. A month after the party, I got a message from Ethan's mother. I almost ignored it, but I opened it. It was short. She said she was sorry for what her son had done. She said she had seen the video. She said she could not defend him. She said she wished things were different. I stared at the message for a while. Then I put the phone down. I did not respond. Not because I was cruel. Because I was done. Some apologies are for the person who sends them, not the person who receives them. And I no longer needed to carry his shame for him. Summer came quietly. The house became mine, in a way it had never been before. Not because of ownership papers, because of atmosphere. I changed the furniture, repainted the walls, removed the last framed photo of Ethan from the hallway. When the empty space appeared on the wall, I did not rush to fill it. I left it there for a while, a blank place. A reminder, not of what I lost, of what I survived. Then, one afternoon, I stood in that same hallway and realized I was smiling. Not because of someone, not because of a message, not because my life was suddenly perfect. I was smiling because I had spent so long being the woman they thought would never rise. And now I had, not in some dramatic movie-like way, not with fireworks, not with applause, but in the quiet, steady way a person returns to themselves after being gone too long. A year later, people still mention the party sometimes. The story grew legs as stories do. They remember the video. They remember the screen. They remember the silence before the truth hit. What they do not remember, though, is the part that mattered most. What happened before the lights came down. What happened inside the woman holding the remote. The fear, the planning, the loneliness, The nights I sat awake rehearsing every sentence I might need. The moments I wanted to break, and didn't. The way I forced myself to become calm when every nerve in my body was screaming. They never talk about that part, but that was the real victory. A few months after that, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email, a real letter. The envelope had no return address, but I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Megan. My hands went cold when I saw her name. For a moment, I just stood in the kitchen holding that envelope, staring at it like it might bite me. Then I opened it. Inside was one page. Her handwriting was smaller than I remembered, uneven, like someone who had written it after crying. She said she had moved. She said life had not gone the way she expected. She said people in her new town did not know her, and that was harder than she thought it would be. Then she wrote the part I almost expected. She said she was sorry, not in a clean, neat way. Not in a way that sounded rehearsed. She said she was sorry for choosing him, sorry for betraying me, sorry for standing in my home and smiling while she helped destroy my marriage. I read that sentence twice. Then I sat down, because no matter how strong you become, some words still reach the old wound first. She continued. She said she had told herself for months that Ethan and I were already broken, that she had convinced herself my marriage was empty, that my pain was exaggerated, that she was not really hurting me because I would eventually forgive her anyway. That line almost made me laugh. People always do that when they cross a line they know better than to cross. They tell themselves a story where they are not the villain, where the harm is smaller, where the damage somehow belongs to someone else. She ended the letter with one final sentence. I lost my sister. I know I deserve that. I sat there for a long time after reading it. The house was quiet. Not television, not music, no voices. Just the sound of the refrigerator humming in the background and my own breathing slowing down. I did not forgive her. That is the truth. I did not fold that letter into a place in my heart where it could become soft and sad and meaningful. But I also did not feel the same fire I used to feel. That surprised me. Because I had expected rage to last longer. I had expected her name to always carry the same poison. Instead, what I felt was something more complicated. Not peace, not compassion, just distance. And sometimes distance is the closest thing to healing. I put the letter in a drawer and closed it. Not because I was saving it. Because I was done giving it power. A week later, Ethan tried again. Of course he did. Men like him never learn the first time. He sent an email this time. Long, messu, full of self-pity dressed up as regret. He said he had been under pressure. He said we had both changed. He said the marriage had not been happy for years. He said he did not know why things had gone so far. I read the email once. Then I deleted it. 5 minutes later, he sent another one. This time he said he wanted closure. That word, closure. People use it like a soft blanket to cover ugly things. As if a clean ending can be requested after a dirty beginning. As if closure is something the person who caused the damage gets to ask for. I replied with 3 words. Speak to my lawyer. That was the last message I ever sent him. The divorce moved faster after that. Paperwork, signatures, negotiations, stares across tables in offices that smelled like coffee and old files. Ethan showed up looking smaller every time I saw him. Not physically, in spirit. His confidence was gone. The charm was gone. The air of certainty he used to wear like cologne had evaporated. He tried to appear reasonable in front of the attorneys. But there is something pathetic about a man who loses his grip on a life he thought he owned. He kept looking at me like I was supposed to soften. Like this was still a marriage in which I would eventually forgive him for being weak and selfish and cruel. But I had already left that version of myself behind. The woman sitting across from him was not begging. She was not pleading. She was not waiting for him to become kind. She was there to finish what he started. The final settlement came through in late autumn. I stayed in the house. He did not. That mattered to me more than I expected it would. Not because I wanted the walls, because I wanted the reminder that I had not been pushed out of my own life. He kept the car. I kept the home. I kept the quiet mornings. I kept the kitchen where my father once carried in groceries and told me he was proud of me. I kept the backyard where I had once sat alone and decided I would survive this. And when the papers were signed, I felt something unfamiliar. Not triumph, not even relief at first. I felt light. For years, I had carried other people's choices like they were part of my body. Their lies, their secrets, their disrespect, their belief that I would remain useful no matter how badly they treated me. When that burden finally lifted,